Troy, did Vanilla Ice basically steal the tune
Oh, yeah.
for Ice Ice Baby?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's just a given.
But apparently changed a note or two or something like that. I don't remember the whole story, but that's hip-hop and rap for you. Stolen beats, stolen riffs.
But the classics will tell you, yes, we took that in honor of, rather than trying to tell you how they changed it.
I have no problem with sampling. I think sampling can be a great thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just when, you steal it.
When you just out and out lie about stealing it.
I think, so Diddy was paying Sting like $2,000 a day.
Yes. Yeah, because of his
For
sampling.
Every Breath You Take. Stealing that for the, what was it, the Notorious B.I.G. tribute song? I can't remember what it was called, but...
Missing You.
That's right. Did you know that off the top of your head?
I did.
How's your music knowledge compared to your sports knowledge?
It's okay. I'm not as great with nowadays music because I just don't listen to it enough.
No. I wouldn't quiz you on that. Like, how many, Led Zeppelin albums, how many can you name?
I'm not going to go that far.
Well, I mean, it's pretty simple. It's 1, 2, 3, untitled.
Yeah.
Start numbering.
Yeah.
And then you get into physical graffiti.
I will say this. I am
House of
not
the
as
Holy.
bad as, was it John who was bad at music? Or was it Mason?
No, John was bad at movies. Mason was bad with music.
Okay. So I'm not
Horrible,
I'm not
as a matter of
Mason.
fact.
I'm not Mason on music.
Okay.
And I'm not John on movies.
Well, we're not playing music versus movies today. We're back in the game. Mitch Fortner, Troy Coverdale, and AJ Shaw. If you missed hour number 1, uploading right now on Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast. You can also listen to newsradiokman.com. Just search for The Game on 1350 K-Man. I tried twice today to do a little riffing and be funny, and I bombed miserably.
What?
So don't miss out on that. Fun action. This is kind of fun, actually. I saw this tweet earlier today. So Utah is getting the Phoenix Coyotes NHL team.
Yes.
And they brought it to a fan vote to pick the new team names. They're not going to be the Coyotes. And according to these over 500,000 people that voted, they're down to 6 names. The Utah Blizzard, the Utah Hockey Club, the Utah Mammoth, Utah Outlaws, Utah Venom, and Utah Yeti.
Yeah, none of them are the Utah Grizzlies, which is a heritage name for hockey in that community.
I'd be fine with Utah Grizzlies. I'd be fine with Utah Hockey Club just for the memes because of the Washington football team.
And that was the reason it was proposed.
Yeah.
Was following that.
Okay, but the Utah Grizzlies, what was that? How long ago was that?
Not all that long ago, because I'm trying to remember when the last time that they would have used that was.
Because if that's a
they
team
were
name...
they were part of the ECHL here within the last decade.
But that name already has a history, though.
That name has a history,
That has
but
nothing to do with this franchise.
yeah, I know, but
They're actually still a team, Troy.
they are. They
Yeah.
still are the minor league team.
Yeah, they've been in the ECHL. They've been called the Utah Grizzlies since 2005.
Or they could just be the Utah Brown or something.
Part of the reason I bring that up.
Nobody? I thought that was
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, Utah Brown. Why Brown?
Another type of bear.
Oh boy.
I know, but
Yeah.
I kind of like Venom because Utah, boy, next to Arizona and New Mexico might have the most species of rattlesnakes
Okay.
in Utah. I mean, that area just kind of flooded with species, but
Yeah, I could see that one. Again, part of that is just my partiality to the hockey heritage has always, for crying out loud, when the team, that is a franchise that was displaced by the Avalanche when they moved into Denver. They were actually the Denver Grizzlies for a bit in the IHL back when the Kansas City Blades were a team. How's that for digging back into the past?
KC had a hockey team, NHL team for 2 years. KC
Well,
Scouts.
Yeah, but the Blades actually wound up being, up until the Mavericks that are playing in Independence now,
Yeah.
the Blades were the longest serving, at least in a time frame after that, and were part of what was the IHL, the International Hockey League at the time, and that was literally one of the two leagues that were feeders for the NHL.
Oilers or Panthers, Mitch? For the Stanley Cup
Oilers.
Finals. Going Oilers?
Let's
It's time for Canada to bring
Get
home
one.
the Stanley Cup.
to get one. Hard to believe we actually have a Canadian team in the finals for the first time in over a decade.
Hockey in Florida.
Actually, the
doesn't make
Canadians were in
sense.
3 years ago.
What's that?
Canadians were in 3 years ago.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But still, you're looking at, other than Vancouver's run that turned into riots
Does the Stanley Cup, does that start tomorrow?
tomorrow
Yes.
night.
Okay.
I'm
NBA
sorry,
Finals
no.
tonight.
No, Saturday night for
Saturday
the
night.
Stanley Cup Finals. NBA starts tonight.
I'm rooting for the Mavericks because Dallas is going to be the underdogs.
I'm going for the Mavericks because of Jasmine Halliburton. Shout out to her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shout out to Jasmine. Used to work here. Used to be a host on Scoreboard
Friend of
Saturday
a
and do the
friend,
morning
yeah.
shows. Yeah. All right. Well, now speaking of a friend, we're now joined by Jerry Ratcliffe. He has JerryRatcliffe.com that covers the ACC and Virginia Cavaliers sports. He'll now join us here on the game to preview the Virginia Cavaliers. Virginia will enter this Super Regional with a record, of 44-15. They are an offensive juggernaut. K-State 35-24. Cats looking to make their first ever trip to the College World Series. The Cavaliers won a national championship back in 2015. Well, Jerry, I appreciate you joining us here on the show. Let's start simply by let's tell this story. What's the story of Virginia baseball this season?
Well, Mitch, they're coming off another spectacular season, and they're hoping that they have enough talent to continue the momentum of the last few years. They're hoping to get to Omaha for the third time in the past 4 seasons, and they've relied heavily this season, Mitch, on the offense. They're one of the most potent offenses in the country. And the big question mark, at least heading into last week's regional, was the pitching staff. It's been kind of a roller coaster ride with those guys all season long. But if Brian O'Connor, the Virginia coach, could have rubbed a magic genie's lamp heading into the regionals about his pitching staff, he couldn't have asked for a better wish, because all of those guys delivered deep in the games and were dominant against, mostly against Mississippi State's lineup. And they didn't stress their staff at all. So they're going into this week's Super Regional with fresh arms and a lot of confidence.
Yeah, that batting average, second best in the nation at 336. I can imagine going up and down that lineup, it's 300 plus, 300 plus, 300 plus. I'm curious about the strategy for Brian O'Connor having that much firepower. Like, does he use much small ball? Is he a pretty aggressive when he gets guys on bases?
Yes, he built the program really on small ball and had a lot of success doing that. The last couple of years, they've had so much firepower, they haven't had to rely on small ball quite as much. But in the regional last week against Mississippi State and Penn, they were facing really good pitchers, so they did rely back on small ball. They didn't have as many extra base hits and home runs and the kind of power that they were accustomed to. So they did rely on small ball and a lot of little details in poking base hits and stealing bases and bunting and all the little things that made this program successful. And that's what made the pitching even more important, because the firepower didn't really show itself very much in that regional. And normally that would have been a problem. But the pitching was so good that they were able to win the pitching battles and squeeze out victories. And that last game against that sewed up the regional against Mississippi State, it was a very tight game. Virginia was ahead 3-2 going into the ninth inning, and Mississippi State just kind of fell apart in that inning. Virginia scored 6 runs, and again, it was they only hit one ball out of the infield in that entire inning when they scored 6 runs. So it just goes to show that they can win small ball or perhaps with the power.
So you touched on this a little bit, but giving kind of an idea where K-State's at heading into this super regional. For most of this season, they've been without one of their top 3 or 4 pitchers for most of the year until this past regional in Fayetteville when Ty Rule was able to start on Sunday and get K-State 4 no-hit innings. So into this super regional, K-State is as healthy as it's been all season long. Can you say that about Virginia? Are they as healthy as they can be, or are they missing a guy or two?
No, they're fully healthy, Mitch. They haven't had a lot of injuries this year, and the ones they have had haven't been lasting. Most of the guys have bounced back pretty quick, and so they're coming into this regional at 100%, and which is the way you'd like to see it, but both teams being healthy, and but Virginia is a very healthy baseball team right now.
Who are the top names on this roster that K-State fans should be aware of?
Well, gosh, you go up and down that batting order, and as Mississippi State's coach and others have pointed out, you don't really get much relief. One guy's just as good as the other. It's everybody's hitting 300 or above, with a couple of exceptions. But probably the main guys are Harrison Didewick, the left fielder. He's just a sophomore, and he's had a spectacular year. He's hitting right at 300, and he just tied the single-season home run record for Virginia, which was set last year with 23. He didn't hit one in the regional, but certainly he's a threat. Jacob Ferentz is hitting 362. He's the catcher. And Bobby Whalen is the leading hitter. He's been hitting around 400 most of the season. He's center fielder. And Griff O'Farrell, shortstop, 331. Henry Godbout, the second baseman, is hitting 367. So there's so many multiple guys that can hurt you. And in terms of the pitching staff, probably 3 main guys: Jay Servino, Evan Blanco, and Jay Woolfolk, who is an interesting story because he started the year as a starter, then had an injury and was used in middle relief and as a closer, but he finally has worked his way back into the 3-man starting rotation. And up until last Sunday's game against Mississippi State, he had only gone past 4 1/3 innings once all season long, and that was back in March. But he pitched 8 full innings against Mississippi State and gave up 8 hits and 2 runs, struck out 7 and walked only 1, and probably the best performance of his career. He's a junior. And so those are probably the guys for Kansas State fans to watch out for.
Speaking of Jerry Ratcliffe, publisher and writer of JerryRatcliffe.com, covering Virginia and ACC sports. Brian O'Connor is now at Virginia for 21 years, the head coach of the Cavaliers, and he has really turned Virginia baseball into a very noticeable powerhouse year in and year out with multiple Super Regionals and College World Series. Just about a decade ago, won a national championship. Where does he rank in Virginia history when it comes to legendary coaches?
Oh, he's right at the top. We were talking on a show the other day if there was a Mount Rushmore of all coaches in Virginia history, he would certainly be on it. You look at what he's done. This is the ninth time they've been in a super regional, and they're in the NCAA tournament almost every year. He's been to the College World Series 5 or 6 times. In fact, we just found out a few weeks ago that in his 21 seasons since he took over Virginia's program, Virginia has the winningest record in college baseball, which I don't think they probably get credit for. And it's remarkable, Mitch, because prior to his arrival here, they were strongly considering reducing Virginia baseball to a club sport because of finances. They were playing in a terrible stadium, and some of the people were so outraged that they were about to do that the boosters really got behind the program. They've built one of the nicest facilities in the ACC, if not the East Coast, and they're annually one of the leaders in attendance in college baseball. They're averaging well over 5,000 fans a game, and we're close to 6 for the regional. So this program has really stepped up nationally. And again, I'm not sure that when you hear about the great powers in baseball, and the Virginia is seldom mentioned, but everybody has come after O'Connor. LSU came after him hard a couple of years ago when Paul Maneri retired, and O'Connor decided to stay at Virginia. So Virginia is very fortunate to have him and to keep him.
You mentioned the stadium, Davenport Field at Disharoon Park. The Virginia home ballpark holds about 6,000. I'm sure it's going to be jam-packed like it is every year they host a super regional or just a regional. K-State just played in Fayetteville, and Baum-Walker Stadium is one of the most unique environments I think I've ever seen in college baseball, let alone even college athletics. It's so unique and a tough place to play. How does the atmosphere at Disharoon Park hold up when it comes to a tough environment?
It's pretty good. The fans are really into it. They've really supported this baseball program throughout the years, and they went through a little dry spell there where they didn't host a regional for a few years, which was very atypical for this program because it's hosted so many times. And so last year they hosted, and Virginia fans were so excited to have it back, and the community again really showed up and were rabid and helped them get back to Omaha, and then that momentum has just carried on throughout this season. It's a pretty rabid crowd, and they're really into the game. They know the game, and they appreciate good baseball, whether it's Virginia or the other team. So they're very knowledgeable fans.
Well, Jerry, I know for a fact that there's going to be a pretty decent amount of K-State fans showing up. I know a handful of them personally that'll be driving out there, which it's a long drive out there to Charlottesville.
Yeah.
But these K-State fans are pumped. I mean, literally halfway across the country for sure. Do you have any, for those listening that are heading out there, do you have any restaurant or nightlife recommendations they need to check out in Charlottesville?
Oh, wow, yeah. Charlottesville, even though it's not a major city, is known for some of the most fabulous restaurants in the state, and a variety of just about anything you want. The best steakhouse in the state is right here in town, called the Aberdeen Barn. Goes back to the late 50s, I think, and it's a stalwart amongst Virginia sports fans over the years. I mean, there's just so many places, from holes in the wall to certainly all the chain restaurants, and then there's a lot of unique restaurants, particularly down near the Virginia campus, a place called The Corner, where there's a lot of places that have been there for decades. So they can't go wrong. There's so much to choose from, and with the students going, it's easy to get into the places now too.
Yeah, as I say, because I think Charlottesville is just a little bit smaller than Manhattan, but I'm sure population-wise, traffic-wise, waiting in line for restaurants, the wait certainly changes when the students are out of town for the summer. Jerry, one more before I wrap up. I want to look big picture. Since you also cover the ACC, like the Big 12, you're about to go under some conference realignment here very soon. How do you feel about Cal, Stanford, and SMU joining the ACC?
Well, it's incredibly bizarre, Mitch. I mean, who would have ever thought you would have two teams from California playing in the ACC? And even though the ACC is spread out from Miami to Boston and to Notre Dame and Louisville, we kind of thought it was going to happen when it was introduced because Notre Dame was pushing for the addition of Stanford and Cal. I think they were the conference was kind of put between a rock and a hard place because with threats of Clemson and Florida State leaving, had the number of conference teams been reduced, it would have given ESPN a way out of the grant of rights package, which has held the league together. So they didn't want that number to fall too far, so that made Stanford and Cal and SMU more attractive than to, if nothing else, for stability. But it's going to be so strange seeing those brands come to Charlottesville and the rest of the league. It's going to take some getting used to, but there's been so much expansion throughout the years that what's a few more teams, right? I guess it'll add to some of the history and the atmosphere, bringing in storied programs like those. But it'll be interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah, there's no doubt, especially who knows what's going to happen with the lawsuits with, involving Clemson and Florida State, what the future holds for conference realignment. I'm sure it's not close to being done, but we'll see if it's sooner or later. But, Jerry, it was a pleasure to talk to you and get to know some Virginia and ACC sports with you. I really appreciate your time. Unfortunately, I'm not traveling to Charlottesville. I'd love to be there, but really appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, I'd love to have you, Mitch. So you'll have to get out here sometime. But I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on, and looking forward to watching the Wildcats play this weekend.
Once again, that's Jerry Ratcliffe. You can find his website, jerryratcliffe.com. I was reading some stories earlier today. Does a great job of covering not just Virginia sports, but the ACC.
Very good.
So great to have him on. Nice breakdown of the Virginia Cavaliers. When we come back, though, kind of touched on it in hour number 1, but hour number 2 was running some numbers. I kind of have a magic number in mind, and I'll tell you what that's all about, plus what I kind of feel like the best-case scenario is for K-State in this super regional against Virginia. That's coming up next on The Game. Game continues. Mitch Fortner, Troy Coverdale, AJ Shaw. AJ, I got a question for you. Oh, he told me hold on. So let's wait a second here, Troy.
ESPN pulling out the real flashback material, talking about Dan Hurley potentially becoming the Lakers head coach.
Well, that's going to be my question for AJ.
They dig out footage of Pitino, Calipari. You talk about failure.
AJ,
moving from the college level.
AJ, do you think the Lakers can get Dan Hurley, who, if you don't know, is the head coach of UConn men's basketball?
Yes, I do know who Dan Hurley is.
I say maybe because our listeners maybe not know.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I thought you were talking to me. Yeah, I know.
You're the show. Of course you know.
Yeah.
You're supposed to know this.
I think they can. It depends on how much they're offering. I mean, from Woj's report earlier, it seemed like that they're willing to offer him a lot of money, which is rare because the Lakers are not the kind of team, and Troy can back me up on this, that don't give out a lot of money for their head coaches.
Not now. They used to.
Yeah.
They used to, but when Rich Paul, LeBron's agent, is also the general manager of the team, something's wrong with that picture. I don't see how the league hasn't stepped in on that deal. I honestly do not understand why they allow that. Literally, a team GM is also the agent for the top player, and potentially the top player's son.
Well, it's also funny that because their prior GM was Kobe's former agent.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Getting wetting their beak a little bit on their own players.
Yeah.
Unreal that the league doesn't have a rule against that. I'm just curious if Hurley does take this job, and I asked you this in the break, but I think AJ might get a chuckle out of this. How long until he picks up the first technical?
That's a great question.
I love watching Dan Hurley coach.
I mean, Scott Foster's got to be going, come on.
Yeah, come on, man. Well,
Bring
Dick Pavetta
it.
was still around?
Oh. Woo! Yeah, Pavetta challenged him to a race first.
Yep.
All right,
Man.
AJ, transition us back into baseball, if you would.
Okay.
Good luck with that.
Best case scenario for K-State and Charlottesville this weekend. Best case scenario.
I'm glad you asked because I think there was a question mark at the end of that. I'm glad you asked because I was kind of brainstorming about this and crunching some numbers. I haven't used any Mitch Palm technology here for a while, and Mitch Palm doesn't typically predict anything baseball. But there was some of the algorithm I could use to crunch some numbers and try to figure out what is K-State, how are they going to try to game plan this whole thing
You want
against
the bed music?
Virginia. No, I do not. This is not official Mitch Palm.
So, in other words, it's still tooling around with enough dust on it still.
Yeah, so
from basketball
and if it was
season.
an official Mitch Palm segment, it would be tomorrow.
Okay.
Maybe I do. Maybe I do bring out Mitch Palm. Mitch Palm is very accurate. So I just have to do some more homework.
Just hope that you don't have to add anything from NVIDIA to that to get the card ready and make it all work again.
And version 6.9 is out now, so I need to get that updated. I almost got a spit take out of Troy. I almost got one.
Well played.
Oh man!
The thing about Mitch Palm was near the end of the season for basketball, it seemed to be perfect at predicting the other result.
You friggin' troll maker.
It was such perfect timing. He's taking a big old gulp of Diet Coke. I was choked on it. It wasn't even my best work.
You just snuck that one in there. That was well done.
Okay. I'm afraid I'm going to start getting the giggles, so give me a second here.
Deep breath.
All right.
Namaste.
Best case scenario for K-State baseball. Last hour we talked a lot about pitching. They have a tall task ahead of them because Virginia's lineup, and I made a mistake there with Jerry in the last segment, they're batting .356 as a team. That is the second best mark in the nation. It's the best mark of teams left in the NCAA tournament. The team ahead of them, Austin Peay. Virginia offensively is super good. I don't know what they face day in, day out in the ACC. I'm not that smart. I know there's some good talent there, obviously. ACC is a very good baseball conference.
And, in fact, given that they've got 4 teams left in the super regionals.
That's true.
Matched the SEC for a number of teams that are still alive.
It's a good conference. They face some tough guys once in a while, for sure. K-State has done that as well. K-State's offense against the Virginia pitching, I think they can get some work done. This is not what it's going to be like what they faced with Hagen Smith. They faced the toughest lefty in the nation, and they scored 6 runs in the 5th inning. They did some damage. It took a while, but they found some rhythm. And man, can that build some momentum for your offense when you get after a guy like that, who's going to be a top 5 pick in the MLB draft. They're going to face a lefty on Friday tomorrow in Evan Blanco, who's still really good, but they've faced the best. Pitching-wise for Virginia, they're good. They're not – K-State is actually slightly statistically better. But it really, to me, the big key is how long a starter can go for K-State. If they're chased after a couple of innings, that's not good. Mm-hmm. That is not good. You want to talk about throwing a wrinkle in a game plan. You're really digging into the bullpen. What's left after that first or second? If things go wrong, how much is left after that game wraps up? Then you really start to throw in questions, and it's not a great scenario.
What comes to mind for me is the fact that with what Virginia is doing offensively this season, they are going to be prepared for pitchers to challenge them. And part of college baseball that is so different than the next level is the impact that the bats still do have on this game. Because if you are trying to pitch corners or try to be too fine, that's how you give up walks. So if you try to challenge, well, you get things like Kalen Culpepper hitting one off of Arkansas's top guy the other evening. It is tough to be a pitcher at the college level. It is, because most do not have the ability to completely blow it by opponents. Paul Skeens, as an example, is a rare example of someone who was successful at the college level because he could ramp it up to 100 and get it past everybody. That's not happening at the college level on a normal basis. And so the game is built for contact. Virginia's a good contact team. And so how much does Pete Hughes maybe have to let his starters wear it a little if Virginia's offense does put up runs early?
I have a magic number in mind, and this just has to do with the series, or not the series, the season that K-State's had of scoring runs, which is over 6 a game, and how many runs they've allowed this year. Really where it breaks down is the magic number is 6. If K-State can keep Virginia at 6 runs or less, this becomes pretty winnable for K-State. Because I think K-State's offense is going to score some runs. I do. I really do. Because K-State's offense, when they're playing good baseball, they're really good. They're really good. And I'm just hoping that momentum has carried over for this weekend. Chuck Ingram, if he stays consistent, watch out. I think K-State can score some runs. But how many are they going to give up on the scoreboard themselves? You know, when K-State this season allowed its opponent to score 6 runs or less, K-State this year was 32-7 at 6 runs or less.
Okay.
If you go 7 or over, 3-17. That seemed to be that true mark. As if you meet that mark, but you keep it to less, you're going to win the game. When it got over 6 runs, K-State just didn't keep up. So I think that's the magic number. 6 runs or less, you're golden. K-State can go win that game. They have enough offense. They should have enough offense. They can go win that game. But if Virginia has the upper hand and they get rolling, I don't think it's going to be good. Now, based on what Pete Hughes said a couple of days ago during his press conference, I think he laid out the format quite simply in the script for the pitching. If everything was to go well, it would be Borma and Rule Friday, Saturday Wentworth and Neighbors. That is best case scenario. The odds of that happening are slim. But it really, if you're bringing in Rule for Friday that night, if Borma can go 7, let's say, which I don't think he would, because Virginia's just too good.
Right.
He's going to have to throw a lot of pitches to get to 7 innings. But if Rule can get you 3 and Borma can get you 6, best case scenario. And I think it's the same for Saturday as well. But I do have a couple of questions about that. And that is, you know, what if you do have to play a Sunday game? You got to keep that in your mind because of their offense being so good. You never, inning, they could just go off on anybody.
Right.
So do you roll the dice and let Rule pitch on Friday with still thinking about the start on Sunday? That's question 1.
Especially with a guy who had an arm injury.
Question 2, yes, in the injury, got to keep that in mind, but we're hoping he's full go now, not having to worry about that.
No, but
last week.
You're not going to bring him back on Sunday.
The question about Saturday is, Coach said that he was very close to pulling Tyson. He almost did it. he did not plan for Tyson to go 10 outs. So we have to imagine that, okay, we're going to maybe have to calibrate a little bit. Are we thinking now 2 innings? So who would be that middle guy? I would imagine Blake Dean, but I'm not sure. Blake Dean has seemed to be that go-to guy out of the bullpen in that spot. You're talking after 5 innings, get into the 6th and into the 7th. Blake Dean can go get you a couple of innings.
But he has also had, like we talked about yesterday with Angel Zerpa for the Royals, he's had that issue with that first guy that he's faced. He has had problems getting past that first guy, has given up contact and allowed a run or 2 to score. That will be a big question for Pete Hughes to look at going into that situation, too.
It's just such a challenging lineup for Virginia, that it's going to be extremely hard to stay on schedule with your pitching. You're going to have to get creative, probably.
Basically, you're going to find out, how the onions are from your pitchers, and how much do you look at it and say, okay, I can't make that change yet. I can't, how much does Hughes hold back when he may be thinking in a normal situation that he would make that change?
And this goes without saying, but it is so important more than ever for the defense, the guys in the field to be on their game. I mean, Virginia has they're pretty close, 975 when it comes to fielding percentage. Almost the same amount of errors this year. So, again, a lot of keys could boil down to how this game goes in either direction. This series goes for either team. I think it's very winnable for K-State. A lot of things have to go right. My biggest worry is your pitching is working. Your starters are getting through innings. But is your defense able to not give up too many free base runners by mistakes?
Right.
Because we've seen I don't think it was as consistent as we all kind of thought in our heads and made it out to be, of just errors, like a little too high at times. They typically happened in the same inning, where you would have 2 happen in the same inning. It just snowballed and it just got bad, and there was really 1 bad inning. That's when K-State had its biggest struggles, but also strike zone and not walking guys.
Right.
That can be a factor as well. So, of course, I have my worries. This is the best offense in the nation that K-State's going to face. Pitching has not been solid all season long. They've been chasing to be top half of the Big 12 all year long. You're just hoping, you have your fingers crossed that, okay, we're now riding this team being healthy, being 100% for the first time all season long. You're as good as you're going to get. Now it's just about execution. You have all of your talent available. You have your first-round draft pick in Kalen Culpepper. Top 3 rounds in Tyson Neighbors. Jackson Wentworth is going to be a high draft pick. I think, he's eligible, right? Brady Day. That regional, he hit 217. K-State was super successful without their best hitter hitting at a high level. 217. He probably had himself, Brady Day, second baseman, phenomenal player, first team All Big 12. Probably thought to himself, I did not have a good weekend.
Right.
It's just how on is K-State. A lot of factors. This is a deadly team in Virginia, but they are beatable. So keep the 6 runs in mind. If K-State's pitching, and you're going to ask the starters to go get you some innings, if they can just keep things under control, not let it get out of hand, not let an inning just snowball, and the runs add up, K-State's in a good spot to go win a series and get to a College World Series. All right, we got to take our final break. Ask Us Anything, coming up next.
Back here on The Game, News Radio KMAN. AJ, Mitch, and Troy with you. Guys, was there ever a show you watched growing up that you got in trouble for watching?
Man, you're going to expose me here. I've been keeping secrets for 20 years.
Mine was a pretty obvious one because, Fox came on late when I was in high school. So there were two shows specifically that Mom was very anti. Simpsons was one.
Yeah.
Simpsons.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But, well, you've got to remember that the, early days of that tended to be pretty cutting edge.
We always remember the quote from George Bush. Walton's probably a better to watch show than The Simpsons.
The other was Married with Children.
Married with Children.
Oh yeah, that could get pretty good.
That one definitely was
I love Married with Children.
Yeah, that one was definitely one that would anger my mother.
So believe it or not, mine was actually Monday Night Raw in the 90s because during that Attitude Era, which would have been like 97, 98 to 2002-ish, the women on there, they would, sometimes not wear a whole lot. So I remember our remote would have a button that would send you back to the previous channel you were watching. I always had that ready to go.
Here's how different we are in age. He had a remote.
Yeah, he could change the channel.
AJ probably uses his phone to flip channels.
Freaking console TV.
Hey man, I still remember the days when you had I still had the big box TV in my family room.
Yeah, we had a
Console.
box too.
Yeah.
The console TV.
Yep, remember it.
But anyway, so when something happened to be on Raw at that time, and I could hear my dad coming into the kitchen, because I was watching the TV in the kitchen, I'd have that button ready to go, and it pops back to Walker, Texas Ranger, or whatever it was.
There were two. Family Guy?
Sure.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah.
Family Guy was one of them. And the other one was The Sopranos.
Yeah.
Yep, both make sense.
Yeah. A lot of cussing,
Yeah.
if they're at the old gentleman's club, Yeah.
She sometimes he'll get mad at me watching, like when I was watching The Sopranos a few years ago, they got mad at me for watching it. And I'm like, why?
What do you think my mom's reaction was when Dad brought home Eddie Murphy Raw?
Hey.
I'm assuming not good.
No. And it got worse when Troy had the cassette.
Yeah, so those were the two shows.
Have you watched The Sopranos?
Yeah.
Good show, huh?
Yeah, I'm more of a Breaking Bad guy, though, to be honest.
Breaking Bad's great, too.
Yeah.
You need to talk to my girlfriend, Lindsay. I've been trying to get her to watch it. She just won't commit to it.
I tried for 5 years to get my dad to watch that show. He finally watched it, and he hated it. I'm
What?
like, what?
Breaking Bad is phenomenal. It gets better with every season. We're out of here. On for an hour and a half tomorrow. Super Regionals start tomorrow. AJ, Troy, I'm Mitch. Go Cats.